Oh my days. Yeah, we're great. We're great. And we are live, everybody. Holy shit. I have been talking for 15 minutes thinking I was talking to everybody. And I will hang up. Thank you for the call. I have been talking for 15 minutes thinking I was talking to everybody. Now, so we need to start all over again. All over again. This is great. This makes sense now. All of these comments, they make so much sense. So the time is now. 15 minutes late, but the time is now. And so before we go ahead and start, we shall say that performance was shit. It was terrible. Have not gone out of the round of 16 since the 70s. Okay? And we need to discuss what Mexico needs to do. But before we start, I need to respect the chat. And I need to say thank you all, everybody, for being patient as I was streaming to myself because I did not go live. I did not click the go live button. So get your popcorn ready and let's go, because like Mexico's recovery time, we are late and a fraud. I appreciate you, Eddie's Football Waffle, for coming in and dropping a like. I better not be muted. If I am muted, then this is cursed. We might need to play. I need to check. Are you sure we are muted, Vibes? Let's see. Let's check the microphone and the camera. Audio is working fine, according to StreamYard. So, you are not catching me out this time. Now, the time is now. The time is now. And for you, so I don't understand these allegations. I'm not doing it. This is we're not discussing these other comments. The Nippon Chiku channel. No. You really can't hear me. Oh my days. This has got to be. What? You really can't hear me. Can you really not hear me? You can hear me. Can you really not hear me? What? Hold on. Yes, I was talking to myself for 15 minutes, and I hope that you can hear me now. We're going to have to run a poll here. Hold on. No. He said the crazy masked man speaks to himself for 15 minutes. Sons of a bitch. Hold on a second. Hold on. Wait. Okay. The link has been sent. The clock is ticking. Now, let me see if you guys can hear me. Because okay. Now, as I was saying, it out. Sorry, guys. Hope the audio is sorted. If it's not, you tell me. Now, as I was saying, the three things that Mexico needs to do. They are coming. Okay, perfect. The audio is fine. So I appreciate it. In the meantime, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Now, for the like button, I need you to have some smoke. I need you to hit it with a spear, with a suplex, whatever it is that you do. But you smack it. Okay, now the audio is working. We can go ahead. Now, the first thing that we need to do is we need to focus on the next generation. Now, as I see, Mexico had the second oldest team both in Qatar and Russia. So, this might not be a problem if it was not a recurring trend. As you can see, the average age does never really go that bad. Not that it does not go down. We had 9 players over the age of 30. We only had 1 player under the age of 24. Now, this man right here on the screen, you can see him. His name is Carlos Acevedo. He is a 26-year-old goalkeeper who was not called up. He is a good goalkeeper too. Now, here is my problem with that. Even if he was your third choice goalkeeper, the other ones that you called up were all very, very old, and this has to be their last World Cup. You had your starter, Guillermo Ochoa. That makes sense. I have no problem with that. He's 37. Now, your second choice goalkeeper is 40-year-old Alfredo Talavera. 40. 40. You heard that correctly. And then after that is 36-year-old Rodolfo Cota. Now tell me, how can you not bring at least one goalkeeper under the age of 30? One goalkeeper who is the future. One goalkeeper who will not be in his 40s in 2026. Another example, Santiago Jimenez. Not Raúl Jimenez, who came in and was partially injured for this World Cup. At 31 years old, it might be hard for him to be here next year or next World Cup. Funes Mori, who is also 31, was there. But your 21-year-old striker, who is the top scorer of the Europa League, was not called up. Now, another thing is that out of all of these players, 9 of them were over the age of 30. 3 of them were your goalkeepers, and then the other 6 are Nestor Araujo, Andrés Guardado, Héctor Herrera, Raúl Jiménez, Funes Mori, and Héctor Moreno. Now, thinking with that in mind, only one player under the age of 24. Only one. And that was Kevin Alvarez, who only played 70 minutes in the World Cup against Argentina. Okay? Now, based on that, it makes you think, why did we bring so many people who will not be here for next World Cup? It's great to celebrate that Guillermo Ochoa and Andres Guardado had 5 World Cups to their name. Hector Moreno, Hector Herrera with their four World Cups. Look at this guy. Look at this guy. Who are you?
I am the Litkushiner.
Executioner. Be gone. Had to flex right there real quick with just a light suplex, a light smack. Okay. Now, as I was saying, I forgot what I was saying. Oh, that's right. We were talking about the age of the players. Now, when you think about it, all of these players, they will not be here next World Cup. Now, on the flip side, though, the US of A had the second youngest squad in the World Cup. Of all the American players on their entire roster, they only had 3 who were at least 30 years old. And out of those 3, only one of them played consistently. So what does that mean? That means that this team that they have, they will be there for the next World Cup. Why did we think the time is now when the time is tomorrow? That was not my cousin. I do not know who that was. That's why certain masked mandem like this late Chekuchener or CTC, well, they get the suplex. Looking at you. Now, but yes, we need to mirror what the US of A is doing, as much as that hurts, and that hurts a lot. But that is the number one reason why we did not compete, and what we need to do to compete in the future. Now, number 2 is the Liga MX structure. And the Liga MX structure, it's a little bit different from what some of the European leagues are doing. So, you have essentially what is 2 completely different leagues in one calendar year. So, you have 18 teams, you have 2 tournaments at the end of each one of those leagues, and 17 games that are played in the regular season. So, you have the Apertura, so 17 games that lead up to the Apertura, and the tournament for the Apertura. And then you have the Clausura at the end, towards the end of the year. The Clausura will have 17 games, its own separate tournament, and then at the end of both of those, you have the champion of champions. So, what is the problem with that? The problem with that is that the Liga MX is too short. You cannot have 2 separate leagues per calendar year and still compete. What does that create? That means that the owners of these clubs, the directors, they say the time for success is now. And when the time is now, you don't have time. How can you bring in your next generation, as I said before? How can you give them stability when success is demanded this very second? When you have no time, you cannot create a process. Ask our friends at Football Power Hour, what is the process? He would say, you can't figure it out because the coach of today might not be the coach of tomorrow. Now, in addition to this, I need to explain Liga MX to you a little bit more. So, the Liga MX structure, it's a little weird. So bear with me. So you have your 17 games in the season. And out of those 17 games, the top 12 out of 18 qualify for the tournament. Top 12. I repeated that correctly. So the only incentive is to get top 4. It is not to win your regular league. And here's the reason why. The top 4 teams, they get a bye on the very first round. So then team number 5 through team number 12, they play each other in this initial round of requalifying. So as you can see, it's seeded to be best versus worst. So 5 versus 12, 6 versus 11, 7 versus 10, 8 versus 9. Out of those winners, the rankings are still going to stay the same. So for example, if number 12 beats number 5, number 12 is going to play team number 1. Number 7 and number 10, or number 6 beats number 11. Well, number 6 would then go ahead and play number 4. So the only real incentive is to get top 4 in this scenario. But even then, when the majority of your league, like I said, 12 out of 18 teams can qualify, what's the incentive to win? And that does not make sense. To add more insult to injury, in 2020, the Liga MX, they got rid of promotion and relegation. So that is even less incentive. Who cares if you're shit? Who cares if you're number 12? You're still going to the tournament. And that is no way to breed talent. That is no way to raise your bar or competition. And that is no way to breed better football. So, as I said, that constant pressure for that winning now mentality is not going to help either. Some people will say that having your foreign talent impacts even more. And I disagree on this, because other leagues, they have foreign talent. They're doing just fine. But the problem is, when you bring in foreign talent for the immediate impact, when you have had players who have had time to develop, that is when it hurts. That is the only time. And then last, but certainly not least, you need to allow your Mexican players not only to develop, but you need to allow them to leave. You need to allow them to have their moves. Right now, only 6 Mexican players are playing in Europe's top 5 leagues. Only 12 are playing in first division when you include other leagues like Belgium or Netherlands and Greece and Portugal. There's only 12 of them. And I'm going to give you a few examples of what has happened in the past. So, we will start with Tecatito Corona. I included him in this list, not because he had an inflated price, but of what he had to do to get rid of it. So, Tecatito Corona, back in 2013, he ran down that contract. He said, I'm not signing for you, Monterrey. No más, no more. And so, with just a little bit of time left on his contract, he was able to sign for the Dutch team Twente for 5 million when he was 20 years old. And it has been very, very well known public knowledge that the director of Monterrey has been resentful about this and has tried to do things to get back at Tecatito due to that low price sale. So, why is that? Why is that Mexican teams value their own players so much? Well, as we already established, is because the league structure does not allow Mexican players to flourish. And so when you have one talent that is flourishing and flourishing quickly, we overvalue them. Jürgen Damm in 2015, he had an offer from Roma, 8 million to go to the old continent. What did his club Pachuca decide to do? They said, no, we want more money. We want $15 million. We want 16 million. And Roma said, I'm not paying that for somebody who is not proved. And so Pachuca, they waited and waited. And they said, no. We sell for more money. And so what happens? The only people who buy the hype is another Mexican team. And in this case, it was Tigres who came in and signed him for 10 million. And that is the only time that they said, we're going to go. Because it was at least 10 million. And so then, this was back in 2015. He was a young, promising talent. He was not in this World Cup. He went to go play in the MLS afterwards. That's the problem with this. We do not have a clear path for development for these players. And when you do have those bright talents, not only is it the clubs who overhype them or overvalue them, but it's the media. And the media, they make these players believe it themselves. For our third example is Rodolfo Pizarro, who traveled to Europe at the beginning of 2020 and had possible offers from 3 clubs in Germany and or Spain. It has always been rumored that it was either Valencia or Sevilla. However, Rodolfo Pizarro, he opted to sign for Monterrey instead. And the reasoning why was because it was not the top teams in Europe. Now, this only happened because Rodolfo Pizarro believed his own hype. And so he went to Monterrey, and then another one that went to MLS. Now, these are just 3 examples. There are more examples that I have seen personally of players who are supposed to make the move, but for whatever reason, they stay within Liga MX or they go to MLS. Whereas MLS players, American players, they go, and it's okay if they go to the championship or they go to another division league, because they know that's where you can develop, and that is the easiest way to get better. Lozano, like Tariq is saying, how many players do we have that have gone to the Netherlands, to Portugal, and have made the move from there? A few of them. And those are the only ones that we have seen succeed in Europe to an extent. That needs to happen more. There needs to be a path for success for these youngsters. We need to stop overvaluing these players, and we need to start focusing on that generation. I appreciate your time, guys. I appreciate you tuning in. I appreciate you bearing with me when we were having a wonderful time waiting while I spoke to myself for 15 minutes. But when I want to leave you guys with one thing, and that is, here is what one thing that Andres Guardado's agent has said, and he was also the agent for Rodolfo Pizarro. He said, speaking on European teams and European leagues, and that is that they do not understand the methodology of Mexico, the regulations, or the format. As we saw, the format of the Mexican League is just too complicated. It's too different. They do not understand why we are not competing in international tournaments, even when we are competitive within the national team. We play good football, but we do not capitalize. And that, because of what they do not understand, it generates mistrust. So how can you have a flourishing flow of talent from Mexico to Europe with no trust? Jalik, thank you for that question. My thoughts on Eric Gutierrez? I think he is a decent player. I don't think that he has been used correctly. I think that putting him as a defensive midfielder above Edson Alvarez is a mistake. That is my opinion, and I think PSV, that might be his ceiling, or maybe if he went and got a move somewhere else, it might be a team not in the top 6 of Premier League. I would say maybe one of the other teams, another team in Italy or Spain, not one of the top teams. I think that's where his ceiling lies. I think he's a good squad player for the national team, but I don't think that he should be a starter. I don't think that. Now, he is getting into the prime of his career. As we said, Andres Guardado, Hector Herrera, they're all phasing out. They should have been phased out 4 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, depending on who you ask, because Andres Guardado was 32 last World Cup. So I think he is one for the future, but in my opinion, I would play Edson Alvarez, Luis Chavez as your pivot. I would have an attacking midfielder, and then like Rodolfo Pizarro, possibly. And then I would have your 2 wingers, as we always play, with Tecatito Corona, Irving Lozano on the left, and then your striker being Santiago Jimenez. That is how I would have played. I think that would have been the strongest team. And then if you need some additional legs, or you need some additional rotation, whether you need a more balanced team, then that is what we do. No Chicharito anymore. I think I would have played him. I think that is one questionable move from the coach. He had some very questionable call-up decisions. I think that Chicharito, even at his age, would have been better than Henry Martin or Funes Mori. And you cannot bring an injured player and Raul Jimenez to the World Cup and expect him to change everything for you. You just cannot. You cannot do that. And I do not blame him. I think it is a wonderful opportunity to play. Chicharito has always been favored over Raul Jimenez, and I think that within the time span that we have seen, 2018 would have been the time to bring him in and have him compete and be the starter for Raul Jimenez. But with Chicharito, I think he is a good option for now. He's not a good option 4 years from now, and that is the what I'm getting at. I think for the 2022 World Cup, I think that the strikers were chosen incorrectly. I think because of that we saw no goals. Because of that, we set up defensively against Argentina. We saw some incorrect formation changes with that. Andres Guardado played less than one half of football because he is 36 years old. And from there, you put on Eric Gutierrez as your defensive midfielder to cover against Messi. You cannot do that. And because of those things, I think that is why we lost to Argentina. We did not set up to attack. We did not set up to win that game. We knew that based on the previous result, that Argentina were going to come at us with everything they had. And they had to. When you're down one game against Saudi Arabia, you have to bring everything that you have. We did not capitalize against Poland. We should have. But the team that we saw against Saudi Arabia was not the team that we saw against Poland and that we saw against Argentina. And I think that the reason for that is because we thought it would be a much easier road to the World Cup round of 16. I think we underestimated Poland, and I think we overestimated Argentina. We gave them too much respect. We had no attack. And then the coach had some questionable tactics for that game. Some questionable decisions. As I said before, why was it that Hector Herrera and Andres Guardado were playing in a back five? You already had 5 defenders. You put one player on Messi because that is what you do. And then you bring on Eric Gutierrez when one of the old players is already injured. Not Edson Alvarez, your best defensive midfielder. If you're going to play defensive, then you stick to that tactic. You stick with the best defensive midfielder and you put him on there. But no, because of that, we allowed 2 goals, and that is what ultimately cost us in the end. Not a good way. And we do not need to have favors from other teams to qualify. That's what happened in Russia. South Korea winning that last game. That is the only reason we got out. And it papered over the cracks of this problem that has been building up. So, I hope this is a message to the Liga MX owners, to the Mexican Federation. The time is now. You need change. You need a path for these players. You need to figure out your structure. But most importantly, you need to focus on what is next. Once again, everybody, I want to thank you all for your time, and I hope you have both a great rest of your day. It is the last week of December, last week of 2022. So with that, I bid you all a happy new year, and we will catch you soon. Thank you.